All right, guys. Shabbat Shalom. My brother Doug, as always. My mom with me. Sister Sharon's with me. My mom. We got brother Yahusha, sister Marissa. So we're going to be doing um, a study like usual. We're going to be going into our Sabbath day studies, Sabbath day readings, and we're going to be going into Second Kings 9. Oof. Mm. All right. Ooh, that was a tight one there. I apologize, everyone that will be listening today. Seems like I got a little bit of a cough here, so um, okay, here we go. Second Kings 9. We got Yahoo anointed king of Yasharal. Since you're there, Mom, why don't you start us off?
Sure. When Solomon had finished building the temple of Yahuwah and the royal palace, and had achieved all he had desired to do, Yahuwah appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. Yahuwah said to him, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple, which you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me in integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Yashrael forever, as I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a man on the throne of Yashrael. But if you or your sons turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other mighty ones and worship them, then I will cut off Yashrael from the land I have given them, and will reject this temple I have consecrated for my name. Yashrael will then become a byword and an object of ridicule among all peoples. And though this temple is now imposing, all who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, why has Yahuwah done such a thing to this land and to this temple? People will answer, because they have forsaken Yahuwah their Eluah, who brought their fathers out of Egypt, and have embraced other mighty ones, worshiping and serving them. That is why Yahuwah brought all this disaster on them. At the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of Yahuwah and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and pine and gold he wanted. But when Hiram went from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother? He asked. And he called them the land of Kabul. My footnote says, for good for nothing. Okay. A name they have to this day. Now Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. Here is the account of the forced labor King Solomon conscripted to build Yahuwah's temple, his own palace, the supporting terraces, the wall of Jerusalem and Hazor, Megiddo and Gazer. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked.
Mom, what verse are you at?
Am I in the wrong? I'm on verse. No, I'm still counting.
No, you're in the right place. I just want to know.
I am on verse. Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I just finished verse 15.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so Pharaoh, king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer. He set it on fire. He killed its Canaanite inhabitants and then gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter,
Huh.
Solomon's wife. And Solomon rebuilt Gezer.
No, that's in verse.
We're
That's
we're in the wrong book, I think.
yeah,
Second Kings, right?
yeah.
Chapter 9.
I wonder if the NIV is including something from the Septuagint or something. Hold on, let me see something. Let me see your Bible, Mom. Because you said you just finished 15, right?
Yeah, and then I went into what's in parentheses.
What's weird?
This next stuff that I read was in parentheses.
Yeah, I wonder if your edition of the NIV included something from the Septuagint. Because it's not showing that on the screen here. I have the NIV from Bible Gateway. It's not showing that at all.
Huh.
So I wonder if newer versions are more catered
Yeah.
to the Masoretic.
Mine is a pretty early version.
Yeah,
Really is.
because look, if you see here, this is what my mom would have been reading was like right here at verse 16. It has none of that. And that's why Brother Yahushua is getting confused because it's not there on the screen what you're reading. That's a little weird. I
I
wonder.
was getting confused just because I was wondering why it had Solomon in it.
Yeah. Oh, Mom, you're in
Solomon
First Kings.
Am I in First Kings?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry
It's
about
okay.
that.
I'll get you there. It's all right.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a good point now that I think of it.
Yeah. She was in First Kings 9 is what happened. Okay, so let's see, just start from the front
sorry.
here. It's
Okay.
all right. Not a big deal.
Alrighty, now.
Gave me enough time to get it on the screen, so not a
Okay.
big deal.
So start from the beginning of chapter
Yeah.
9. Okay.
Yeah.
The prophet Elisha summoned a man from the company of the prophets and said to him, tuck your cloak into your belt, take this flask of oil with you, and go to Ramoth Gilead. When you get there, look for Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi. Go to him, get him away from his companions, and take him into an inner room. Then take the flask and pour the oil on his head and declare, this is what Yahuwah says, I anoint you king over Yashrael. Then open the door and run. Don't delay. So the young man, the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead. When he arrived, he found the army officers sitting together. I have a message for you, commander, he said. For a rich man, asked Jehu. For you, commander, he replied. Jehu got up and went into the house. Then the prophet poured the oil on Jehu's head and declared, this is what the Yahuwah, the Eluah of Yashrael says, I anoint you king over Yahuwah's people, Yashrael. You are to destroy the house of Ahab, your master. And I will avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets, and the blood of all Yahuwah's servants shed by Jezebel. The whole house of Ahab will perish. I will cut off from Ahab every last male in Yashrael, slave free. I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, son of Ahiah. As for Jezebel, dogs will devour her on the plot of ground at Jezreel, and no one will bury her. Then he opened the door and ran. When Jehu went out to his fellow officers, one of them asked him, is everything all right? How did this madman come to you? You know the man and the sort of things he says, Jehu replied. That's not true, they said. Tell us. Jehu said, here is what he told me. This is what Yahuwah says. I anoint you king over Yashrael. They hurried and took their cloaks and spread them under him on the bare steps. Then they blew the trumpet and shouted, Jehu is king. So Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram and all Yashrael have been defending Ramoth Gilead against Hazael, king of Aram. But King Joram had returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds the Arameans had inflicted on him in battle with Hazael, king of Aram. Jehu said, "Is this the way you feel? Don't let anyone slip out of the city to go and tell the news in Jezreel." Then he got into his chariot and rode to Jezreel because Joram was resting there, and Ahaziah, king of Yehuda, had gone down to see him. When the lookout standing on the tower in Jezreel saw Jehu's troops, he called out, "I see some troops coming."
Right.
"Get a horseman," Joram ordered. "Send him to meet them and ask, 'Do you come in peace?'" The horseman rode off to meet Jehu and said, "This is what the king says. Do you come in peace?" "What do you have to do with peace?" Jehu replied. "Fall in behind me." The lookout reported, "The messenger has reached them, but he isn't coming back." So the king sent out a second horseman. When he came to them, he said, "What the king says, do you come in peace?" Jehu replied, "What do you have to do with peace? Fall in behind me." The lookout reported, "He has reached them, but he isn't coming back either. The driving is like that of Jehu, son of Nimshi. He drives like a madman." "Hitch up my chariot," Joram ordered, and when it was hitched up, Joram, king of Yashrael, and Ahaziah, king of Yehuda, rode out, each in his own chariot, to meet Jehu. They met him at the plot of ground that had belonged to Naboth the Jezreelite. When Joram saw Jehu, he asked, "Have you come in peace, Jehu?" "How can there be peace?" Jehu replied, "as long as all the idolatry and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel abound." Joram turned about and fled, calling out to Ahaziah, "Treachery, Ahaziah." Then Jehu drew his bow and shot Joram between the shoulders. The arrow pierced his heart, and he slumped down in his chariot. Jehu said to Bidkar, his chariot officer, "Pick him up and throw him on the field that belonged to Naboth the Jezreelite. Remember how you and I were riding together in chariots behind Ahab, his father, when Yahuwah made this prophecy about him. Yesterday I saw the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons, declares Yahuwah, and I will surely make you pay for it on this plot of ground, declares Yahuwah. Now then, pick him up and throw him on that plot in accordance with the word of Yahuwah." When Ahaziah, king of Yehuda, saw what had happened, he fled up the road to Bet Hagan. Jehu chased him, shouting, "Kill him too." They wounded him in his chariot on the way up to Gur, next near Yiblaim. But he escaped to Megiddo, and his servants took him by chariot to Jerusalem and buried him with his fathers in his tomb in the city of David. In the 11th year of Joram, son of Ahab, Ahaziah had become king of Yehuda. Then Jehu went to Jezreel. When Jezebel heard about it, she painted her eyes, arranged her hair, and looked out of a window. As Jehu entered the gate, she asked, "Have you come in peace, Zimri, you murderer of your master?" He looked up at the window and called out, "Who is on my side?" "Who?" 2 or 3 eunuchs looked down at him. "Throw her down," Jehu said. So they threw her down, and some of her blood spattered the wall and the horses as they trampled her underfoot. Jehu went in and ate and drank. "Take care of that cursed woman," he said, "and bury her, for she was a king's daughter." But when they went out to bury her, they found nothing except her skull, her feet, and her hands. They went back and told Jehu, who said, "This is the word of Yahuwah that he spoke through his servant Elijah the Tishbite on the plot of ground at Jezreel. Dogs will devour Jezebel's flesh, Jezebel's body will be like refuse on the ground in the plot at Jezreel, so that no one will be able to say, this is Jezebel.
So, hmm. So what's interesting is your NIV is a lot more older English than I was expecting. Because I was just looking at the one I had on the screen. It's a lot more modern. They've made it now, like where it talks about how Isabel was making herself up, and it actually uses the term makeup. Like they're using modern terms like makeup. They're using modern terms like maniac in the newer NIVs. So you can see how the older NIV still has.
Right.
It's weird. The older NIV still has like almost King James like English. So I just find that, yeah. What's sayest thou type of stuff? Like that's still King James English. So it's weird to me that the original NIV wasn't that contemporary, really.
Right.
I
They
think
took the these and thous and all
I'm
that
going to
stuff
share the
out.
link here. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
The whole the whole is it shalom or what have you to do with shalom type deal.
Oh,
That's been something that I had heard something from Avid Yahoo. I think it was a while back. I've sent some of her links before, but she does really short words, but they're always really on point. And she was taking that verse and then comparing it, with Yahusha's word, like go into a house, if they receive, let your shalom, um, your shalom will rest upon the house. But if they don't receive, you know, dust your feet off and allow your shalom to return to you. And so, just in Yahuwah, where he says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. When we speak shalom, it's it means something. It's more than something that we're just saying, right? Hi and bye, right?
yeah.
Like I'm really careful with who I say shalom to based off of these two verses. The people that I used to go visit with out here, that uh, believe in the whole divine feminine, where Abba told me to
Oh,
go in. You know,
yeah.
Shalom is if I seen them, coming or going outside of that place, like at a wedding or something, I'm still gonna be, I'm still gonna treat them with love, but Shalom is not something that I can say
Yeah. Mm-mm.
because there's no Shalom there.
That's
If we really look at what Shalom means, in its most ancient form, right, destroying the authority attached to chaos.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're also not supposed to say Yah speed to people of certain doctrines.
Right.
Where, you know, so like that's even in the Brit Hadashah, like Paul would be like, if they don't adhere to this, you know, don't barack their house is basically what he's saying.
Right.
You're baracking their house if you say Yah speed to someone that is out of alignment of what scripture says,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Definitely. So let me see here. I think I'll do chapter 10 for us here. Is that still a new hand or an old hand?
Oh no.
Okay. Just wanted to double check. All right, so this is gonna be Yahoo slaughters Ahab's descendants. So this would be 2 Kings 10 for those with a physical LXX. That's 4 Kings 10. Just in case anyone's reading with a physical Septuagint. 4 Kings is 2 Kings in the Masoretic. So All right, so it says Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. To Yehu, oh my bad. So Yehu wrote letters and sent them to Samaria, to the rulers of the city, to the elders of the guardians of the sons of Ahab, saying, just to note, I find it interesting you got 70 there.
Yeah.
Yahuwah uses the number 70 a lot. A lot, I would say in government, like heavenly and earthly government, he'll use 70. Like, the 70 principalities over the 70 nations. You have, the 70 souls of Israel went down into Egypt. I mean, so Yahuwah likes to use that a lot with his people. 70 seems to represent like righteous government.
Mm-hmm.
So, see here. Okay. So we're at verse 2 now. Now then, as soon as this letter comes to you, seeing your master's sons are with you, and there are with you chariots and horses, fortified cities, also and weapons.
Mine mine doesn't have weapons. Mine has arms.
Ah.
Yeah, same. That's again the old the not I shouldn't say old English, but Middle English. That was very popular.
Mhm.
Yeah. The reason the Vulgate doesn't have it as arms is because this version of the Vulgate's very modern. It's a 2009 translation, so it's going to be modern. But yeah, the Britons still kept the word arms in the 1800s. They were still using that as a general word for like taking up arms and all that. So, yeah. Ooh, man, my chest. Jeez.
Mm.
Select the best and fittest of your master's sons, set him on your father's throne, and fight for your master's house. But they were exceedingly afraid and said, behold, the two kings cannot stand before him. All right, hold on a second. Let me not skim too far past that. Okay. So the two kings could not stand before him. How then can we stand? All right. So he who was over the palace and he who was over the city, together with the elders and guardians, sent to Yahoo saying, we are your servants. We will do all that you tell us. We will not make anyone king, whatever is tube in your eyes. Then he wrote to them a second letter saying, if you are only on my side, if you are ready to obey me, take the heads of your master's sons and come to me at Jezreel. Hold on a second. I think my voice is just a little raspy there. All right. Come to me at Jezreel tomorrow. At this time, now the king's sons, 70 persons, were with great men of the city. Who were bringing them up. Okay. As soon as the letter came to them, they took the king's sons and slaughtered them, 70 persons, and put their heads in the baskets and sent them to him at Jezreel. When the messenger came and told him, they have brought the heads of the king's sons, he said, lay them in two heaps at the entrance of the gate until morning. Then in the morning, when he went out, he stood and said to all the people, you are innocent. And let's see here. So he stood said to all the people, "You are innocent. It was I who conspired against my master and killed him, but who struck down all these?" Now then, that there shall fall to the earth nothing of the word of Yahuwah, which Yahuwah spoke concerning the house of Ahab, for Yahuwah has done what he said by his servant Eliyahu. Now, this is where I would write down this cross reference here. 2 Kings 10:17. Even though, So they'll explain later on about this prophecy here that was spoken by Eliyahu. So let me see here. Okay, I got to fix that footnotes option. It shouldn't be set on the Greek only ABP. I got to fix that. Okay, so I think we're at verse 11 here.
Yeah.
So Jehu struck down all who remained of the house of Ahab and Jezreel, all his great men, his close friends, his priests, till he left him none remaining. Then he set out, went to Samaria on the way when he was at Beth Eked of the shepherds. So that's interesting. That's kind of interesting. I guess it's kind of the same thing. I'm just noticing a difference in wording here. The Septuagint says sheep shearing, which is kind of the same thing, but I guess it's more specific. Sheep shearing in the way. So I guess, it's basically saying, the shepherd's house or the shepherd's cabin is what it means, what Beth Eked of the shepherds means. So I guess the Hebrew word Beth Eked means house.
Oh.
I'm assuming. Looking at the Vulgate and the Septuagint there, it seems to indicate that they're taking on a more paraphrasing type of thing here, where it's saying the shepherd's cabin in the Vulgate. So I gotta take an intermission.
Sure.
Mom, can you pick up at verse 13?
Verse 13. Okay. He met some relatives of Ahaziah, king of Yehuda, and asked, "Who are you?" They said, "We are relatives of Ahaziah, and we have come down to greet the families of the king and of the queen mother." "Take them alive," he ordered. So they took them alive and slaughtered them by the well of Beth Eked. 42 men. He left no survivor. After he had left there, he came upon Jehonadab, son of Rechab, who was on his way to meet him. Jehu greeted him and said, "Are you in accord with me as I am with you?" "I am," Jehonadab answered. "If so," said Jehu, "give me your hand." So he did, and Jehu helped him up into the chariot. Jehu said, "Come with me and see my zeal for Yahuwah." Then he had him ride along in his chariot. When Jehu came to Samaria, he killed all who were left there of Ahab's family. He destroyed them, according to the word of Yahuwah spoken by Elijah. I'm on 18. Do you want me to continue?
I'll pick up at 18.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Yahoo strikes down the prophets of Baal. Then Yahoo assembled all the people and said to them, "Ahab served Baal little, but Yahoo will serve him much." So I guess he's deceiving the pagan priests.
Oh, okay.
I see what he's doing. "Now, therefore, call to me." So yeah, he's about to, and I know this to the naked eye might seem like sinful, but you got to understand that basically he's deceiving the wicked.
Yeah.
So there's a concept in scripture where to fulfill Yahuwah's purpose, it is righteous sometimes to deceive the wicked or the heathens. To, you'll see even with Joseph a little bit, he kind of plays a part. He kind of plays the part of, hiding himself from his brothers. And so he, in a way, he was even deceiving his brothers in a righteous way. So you'll see that sometimes in scripture. I know it seems like, this is messed up. He's like making them think that he worships Baal when he doesn't. He's doing this for a purpose, for Yahuwah's purpose. So he's also not deceiving people for a selfish purpose either. So that's another thing. You got to look at the context of the story. Now, therefore, call me all the prophets of Baal, all his worshipers, all of his priests. Let none be missing. For I have a great sacrifice to offer to Baal. Whoever is missing shall not live, but yet Yahoo did it with cunning in order to destroy the worshipers of Baal. See? Yahoo set apart a solemn assembly for Baal, so they proclaimed. Yahoo sent throughout all of Yasharel all the worshipers of Baal. So Yahoo sent throughout all Yasharel all the worshipers of Baal came. So there was not a man left who did not come. They entered the house of Baal, and the house of Baal was filled from one end to the other. And I'm getting another reference they're giving here. See, the only thing I don't like that the ESV is doing here is they're giving you references that you're going to see later on in the chapter. That's the only thing I don't like, is that you're going to come across it anyway. So, yeah. But anyway, that's just a pet peeve of mine. He said to him, who was in charge of the wardrobe, bring out the vestments for all the worshipers of Baal. So he brought out the vestments for them. Now, I wanted to stop here. This is important to notice, right? So the prophets of Baal have certain types of clothing, right? I don't know if you guys ever came across that scripture in the prophets where it talks about all those that where is it? I think it might be in Amos. On that day I will destroy all those that wear strange garments. So this is, I believe, a good cross-reference real quick, just to show you guys the context of certain verses like this. I think it's somewhere in Amos where it talks about, on that day I will destroy all those who keep pagan customs. Let me see here. So the NLT paraphrase of it, Zephaniah 1:8. So when you look at Zephaniah 1:8, it's talking about the same thing that I just read in verse 22 of 2 Kings 10. So I think it's important to notice this, because in your word for word, because I know some people out there like paraphrase, they'll say, oh, I'll never read a paraphrase Bible. I'm going to show you where it's valuable. Okay. So unless you understand what strange garments mean, you're not going to understand this verse in Zephaniah. Okay, so it says, on the day of Yahuwah's sacrifice, I will punish the officials and the king's sons and all those clad in foreign clothes. Unless you understand what foreign clothes mean, you're going to get some weird idea. So the NLT paraphrases it as, on that day of judgment, says Yahuwah, I will punish the leaders and princes of Judah and all those following pagan customs. It's paraphrasing strange garments as pagan customs. Why? Because the prophets of Baal had their own type of clothing. It's tied to worship. And you're not going to get that in a regular word for word translation. So I know a lot of people sometimes give me a hard time when I give the, paraphrase cross references, but there's a reason I do that, to bring out what it means to wear strange garments. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm not wearing linen. That's not what it's talking about. It's talking about there was pagan ritual clothing that Yahuwah is talking about in prophecy. So, and that's what is being talked about here, by the way, in 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 22. It's talking about the vestments for the priests of Baal. So, anyway, just wanted to explain that. Ooh. Then Yahoo went into the house of Baal with Yehonadab, son of Rechab, and said to him, to the worshippers of Baal, search, see that there is no servant of Yahuwah here among you, but only the worshippers of Baal. See, that should have, like, it's showing very, like, it's showing, like, the ignorance of this guy that he's talking to, because he's, like, to me, that would have been a little sketchy. You're telling me to bring all the worshipers of Baal, but none of the worshipers of Yahuwah into one place. So it's like that should have given off a hint of like something's up. But you know, I guess they weren't too smart. So all right. Anyway, moving on, verse 24. Then they went and offer sacrifices and burnt offerings. Now Yehu stationed 80 men outside. And the man who allows any of those whom I give into whom I give into your hands to escape shall forfeit his life. Okay. I'm just double checking to see if there's any differences there in that verse. So you made an end of the offering of burnt offerings. Yahoo said to the guard and to the officers, go and strike him down, let not a man escapes. No. So when they put them to the sword, the guard and the officers cast them out and went into the inner room of the house of Baal. Okay, this time we have an actual cross-reference that might be valuable here. Is 1 Samuel 22:17. Yeah. And they brought out the pillar that was in the house of Baal and burned it. Wow. Okay. Now, these are really good references. I'm going to try to only make note of ones that are not in this chapter, like actual cross-references that you can go to other books about these verses here. So we got 1 Kings 16:32, 2 Kings 11:18. And they demolished the pillar of Baal, demolished the house of Baal, and made a latrine to this day. Some of you might be asking, Doug, what the heck is a pillar of Baal? And I would like to take the time here, because we're almost done with the chapter anyway, to try to explain what a pillar of Baal is. So if you've ever seen, like, especially in the DC area where me and my mom now live close by, if you've ever seen, okay, the Washington Monument, okay, these are like pillars of Baal, by the way. Sun pillars, okay? So when it talks about pillars of Baal, in ancient times, they would have these obelisks all around. It wasn't just in Washington. It wasn't just in Egypt. It was all around the world.
Yes.
This was a sign that a nation would worship this as their god. So for those of you that still think this was a Hebrew Israelite original country or a Christian original country, I can say to you, maybe with the understanding we know now of where Christianity comes from, I would probably say that's technically true. But as far as founded on the worship of the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? No, never was. So when people say we need to put the creator back in school, well, he never was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When people say this country needs to go back worshiping the creator, they never did. They worship Baal, and they still worship Baal. It's just now it's more of a lawless type of Baal worship, where before they had a cloak of religiousness back in the day. You know, how people in the United States acted was more of a religious Christianity tone. Now, the elite are completely getting rid of that religious tone and making it complete, lawlessness, new age hippie, kumbaya lawlessness. So that's the only difference. But as far as the history of this country's always worshipped Baal. Always. So anyway, but I just wanted to show you guys what a sun pillar looks like. So this is what the text is talking about in context. Just so you guys can understand what's being talked about here. Let's see here. So wiped out Baal. So thus Yahoo wiped out Baal from Yasharal. Thanks, Mom. Oh, my mouth is just super dry today. I don't know what it is. So Yahoo wiped out Baal from Yasharal, but Yahoo turned not aside from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nabat.
Hmm. Hmm.
But Yehu turned not aside from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nabat, which he made Yashar to sin. No. That is the golden calves that were in Bethel and in Dan. All right. So there's another reference here. We got 1 Kings 12:28. Right. And Yahuwah said to Yahoo, because you have done well and carried out what is right in my eyes, I have done to the house of Ahab according to what that was in my heart. Your sons of the fourth generation shall sit on the throne of Yashrael. So this is kind of like Yahuwah rewarding him, saying, to the fourth generation of your seed, they will be able to sit on the throne of Yashrael. But Yahoo was not careful to walk in the law of Yahuwah, the Alua Yashrael, with all his heart. He did not turn from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Yashrael to sin. Which, by the way, it would have been idolatry. That's what it's talking about there. It's talking about the two golden calves that Jeroboam made. In those days, Yahuwah began to cut off parts of Yashrael, Hazael, to feed them throughout the territory of Yashrael. Now, Hazael, is that the person, Mom, who was that the king of Assyria at that point?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured that. Okay, so this is probably right along the time, guys, where the Assyrian captivity possibly would have been starting to take place, like where he's starting to divorce the northern house, because now you have Assyria taking over. I would like to look up after this reading just when exactly 2 Kings 10 would have been taking place chronologically. From the Jordan eastward, all the land of Gilead, the Gadites, the Reubenites, Manassites from Aurora, which is by the valley of Arnon, that is Gilead and Bashan. And there's another reference here, Amos. No. Now, the rest of the acts of Yahoo and all that he did and all his strength, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Yasharal? And I think all of us understand what that book is. That's the Book of Chronicles. So Yahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria. And Yahuhaz, his son, reigned in his place. The time that Yahu reigned over Yashar and Samaria was 28 years. So not really much of a difference here as far as manuscript-wise. It kind of read the same throughout most of the chapter. Go ahead, brother.
Well, no, I was going to. Never mind.
Okay. There wasn't really trying to think stuff that I would have came across in this chapter. So it seems like the idolatry was the biggest problem at that point with the golden calves of Jeroboam. I wonder why he didn't want to get rid of them. That's very weird. He did everything else.
Yeah, what I think is weird is how he was willing to go through all of that, and and that was a big undertaking of getting rid of the temple of Baal, and then you're going to go screw it up. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
I think what's interesting is that this is something that he was already doing when Yahweh called him, because it says he did not depart from. So I think it's interesting that Yahuwah would have called him when he was still in idolatry.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of shows you that Yahweh he'll meet you where you're at, and he'll call you, and then slowly, little by little, he'll start to chip away at you. Like, it doesn't just happen all at once.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to the last chapter, I forget, someone else had pointed it out, but I think it's kind of funny. You have Isabel, knowing that Yahoo is coming, knowing that he just wiped out all that he wiped out, and knowing that more than likely this is going to be her last day on this earth, and yet she goes and she puts on her makeup and gets dressed.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Talk
right.
about the definition of vanity there.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's Isabel. Just seeing some of this stuff, I did not realize some of these cross references here. Psalms 39, verse 1. I'm going to go to a couple of these here just to see what these are talking about. Psalms. Some of these footnotes that the ESV has is actually very valuable here. Okay. So let's see here. Psalms 39. Just one. I'm using my sword here because I don't want to keep changing this screen here. There's a lot of cross references here I wrote down. See here. Interesting. For the end, a song of Daoud to Eduthan. I said, I will take heed to my ways, and that I sin not with my tongue. I set a guard on my mouth while the sinner stood in my presence. I wonder why they gave that as a a footnote for verse 31. That's very strange. That's very strange. I wonder why they did that. Okay, this one makes sense. The other one they have, Amos 1, verse 3. And Yahuwah said, For 3 sins of Damascus, and 4 I will not turn away from, because they sawed with iron saws the women with child of the Gileadites. So that makes sense. It's talking
What
about
was the other cross reference? Real quick.
Psalms 1, my bad, Psalms 39, verse 1, where it just generally talks about not to sin with our tongue. So I'm trying to see where I think the ESV sometimes they get very loose footnotes because that like not really pertaining to that verse. I guess what they're alluding that it could be his sinning with his mouth, but I don't think that's what his issue was. If it's talking about the sin of Jeroboam, uh,
Well, it's a cross reference for which verse?
verse 31 of this past chapter. Yeah, it's like they put it right at the end of verse 31.
Huh.
I'm just trying to see where their connection is. I guess maybe they didn't understand what the sin of Jeroboam actually was. And
Perhaps it's because you have the scriptures. So my version of 2 Kings 10:31 says Yahoo took no heed to walk in the Torah of Yahweh of the law of Yahshua with all his heart, and then he departed not from following sins. But it starts off with he took no heed to walk in the Torah of Yahweh. So
uh,
then also my translation of Psalms 39:1 says, I said I will take heed to my
uh,
ways.
okay, okay, so they're getting. Oh, that's interesting. The ESV then is getting a. They're they're paralleling the wording of Psalms there in the Septuagint with the Septuagint of that verse. That's interesting.
Well, I
So
think it might be more than just the wording. Just the concept is it's a contrasting parallel. You have the psalmist taking heed to the way of Yahweh, and you have Yahoo not taking heed, doing the opposite of what we're told to do. I think it's
okay, I see.
like a contrasting parallel.
Okay, I see there. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see here. So I'm just trying to see the other ones here. First Kings 12:28. So I guess that gives you the other account of this happening with Ahab. Let's see here. First Kings 12:28 is a cross reference for verse 29 of this chapter. The king took counsel, went and made 2 golden heifers, and said to the people, Let it suffice you to have gone here to Jerusalem. Behold, your mighty ones, O Yashral, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. So basically, that's the sin of Jeroboam. That's what he did. He didn't want them going to Rehoboam, to Jerusalem. So for them to worship where they were, he made 2 golden calves, similar to Aaron making the golden calf. So that's 1 Kings 12:28 for uh 2 Kings. This would have been 10 verse 29, I believe. So this they're citing this as a cross reference for verse 29. So oh, go ahead, bro. I didn't see your hand up there.
I'm an old head.
Oh, okay. So there's some good references here that I wrote down. The First Kings 12:28 I really like because it's showing you what the sin of Jeroboam actually is, along with the paralleling it with 2 Kings 10:29. Let's see here. Then we got a couple. What happened?
No, I'm not. I'm reading ahead a little bit into the next chapter. Man, there's some stuff going on there.
See
Whoa.
here. Now they have the pillar that was in the house of Baal and burned it. You can find more about that pillar in 1 Kings 16:32. He set up an altar to Baal in the house of his abominations, which he built in Samaria. So the Septuagint paraphrases it as the house of his abominations, which I kind of like. So that is 1 Kings 16:32. That is paired with 2 Kings 10:26. Yeah. So, and I don't want to go to the 2 Kings 11:18 one because we're going to go to 2 Kings 11 anyway. So we really don't need to read that reference yet. The only other one one of the other ones I wanted to read was 1 Samuel here 22:17, which is crossed with 2 Kings 10:25, talking about the inner room of the house of Baal and all that. So let's see here. 22:17. And the king said to the footmen that attended on him, "Draw near and slay the priests of Yahuwah, because their hand is with Daud, because they knew that he fled, and they did not inform me. But the servants of the king would not lift their hands to fall upon the priest of Yahuwah." So it's showing the opposite parallel of in 1 Samuel 22, they're trying to slay all the priests of Yahuwah, which I think this is Saul commanding this.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so you have King Shaul at that point telling them to slay all of Yahuwah's priests, and how that parallels with this account where the priests of Baal are being slaughtered. So, yeah. And I think the only other one I wanted to go to is Jeremiah 35, verse 6. Jeremiah 35, 6. No. Yeah. So this is paralleled with verse 23, where it talks about Yahoo went into the house of Baal, and he said to the worshipers, and make sure that there's no worshipers of Yahuwah here. So let's see how this parallels here. I might have to go to the Masoretic because Jeremiah gets a little weird with the chapter numberings. Let's see here. 35, 6. But they said, "We will drink no wine, for Yehonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, commands us, saying, you shall drink no wine, neither you nor your sons forever." That's a very loose reference there. I kind of don't see the connection there. That other than the fact it talks about Yehonadab, that's about it. That's really the only reference you have between the two cross references. The only thing in common it mentions Yehonadab, the son of Rechab. That's about it. But one thing is talking about what their father commanded them versus this is talking about killing the worshipers of Baal versus, taking almost like a Nazarite vow. So it's kind of very loose reference. I wouldn't agree with the ESV doing that one. That's almost like you're kind of grasping at straws with that one almost. So, other than that, I guess we can move to chapter 11 and finish up. See, do we have any volunteers for a final reader here for chapter 11? Okay, if not,
That sounded like Dennis said yes.
he's trying to throw Dennis under the bus.
Shabbat Shalom, Dennis.
Shabbat Shalom, Dennis. Oh, feeling better.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hey. So, I don't know, brother, if you were wanting to read. I don't know if you're in You feel up to it? If not, I could always pick on Brother Yahusha or someone else.
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I think I can.
All right, so we're at Second Kings chapter 11.
Yeah.
Let's see here, just to try to follow with him. See if I can try to. I think I know what I can do here. Let's see here.
All right. Okay. Athaliah was the mother of Ahijah, and when she saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the offspring of the reign. But Jehoshaphat, the daughter of Sovereign Joram, sister of Ahijah, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the sons of the sovereign's sons, and were put to death. So they hid him and his nurse in the bedroom from Athaliah, and he was not put to death. And he remained with her in hiding in the house of Yahweh for 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada went and brought the commanders of hundreds with the Karites and the runners, and brought them into the house of Yahweh, him. And he made a covenant with them, and took an oath from them in the house of Yahweh, and showed them the son of the sovereign. And he commanded them, saying, "This is what you are to do. 1/3 of you who came in on the Sabbath to be on guard in the sovereign's house, and 1/3 at the gate of Sur, 1/3 at the gate behind the runners, and you shall be on guard in the house, lest it be broken down. And the 2 detachments of you who are going out on the Sabbath shall be on guard in the house of Yahweh for the sovereign.
Okay.
And you shall surround the sovereign on all sides, every man on his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within the ranks, let him be put to death, and be with the sovereign as he goes out, as he comes in." So the commanders of the hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded, and each of them took his men who were going in on the Sabbath, and with those who were going out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. And the priest gave the commanders of hundreds of spears, the spears and shields which had belonged to Solomon David, that were in the house of Yahuwah. And the runner stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, all around the sovereign, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, by the altar and the house. And he brought out the son of the sovereign, and put on him the diadem and the witness. And they set him up to reign, and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, "Let the sovereign live." And Athaliah heard the noise of the runners, the people, and she came to the people into the house of Yahuwah, and looked and saw the sovereign standing by a column, according to the ruling, and the chiefs and the trumpeters were beside the sovereign, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and blowing trumpets. And Athaliah tore her garments and cried out, "Treason, treason." And Jehoiada, the priest, commanded the commanders of the hundreds, the officers of the army, and said to them, "Take her outside the ranks and slay with the sword whoever follows her. For the priest has said, do not let her be killed in the house of Yahuwah. So they took hold of her, and she went by way of the horses, entrance to the sovereign's house, and was put to death there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between Yahuwah and the sovereign and the people to be the people of Yahuwah, also between the sovereign and the people. And all the people of the land went to the house of Baal and broke it down. They completely broke up its altars and images and slew Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the priest anointed and appointed inspectors over the house of Yahuwah, and took the commanders of hundreds and the Kerites and the runners and all the people of the land. And they brought the sovereign down from the house of Yahuwah and went by way of the gate of the runners to the sovereign's house. And he sat on the throne of the sovereigns. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city had rest. And they had slain Athaliah with a sword in the sovereign's house. Jehoash was 7 years old when he began to reign.
Hmm.
And I believe, if I remember right, it was Athaliah that also was slaughtering all the sovereigns. And that was when Yirmiyahu brought them over to Ireland.
Hmm.
And that was part of our lineage.
Hmm. Uh, uh, find this very strange. I wonder if this is a manuscript issue or what, but the idea that he would be that young when he began to reign, I kind of wonder if that's the case.
Yeah,
It's
if he was given Yahuwah's spirit.
Mm-hmm.
7 years old's a little too young. Um, the Hebrew here is Sheba, which I don't even think that's supposed to be a number. Uh, yeah, it looks like this word could possibly be seven, sevenfold, 7 times. I'm kind of wondering if he got, after a while, got mistranslated or misunderstood. Um, or either that or that there should be another Sheba there. In combination, it says it could equal up to 17. I could see him being 17 and reigning,
Yeah.
but 7, it's kind of unrealistic of those times.
Well, if you go back to verse 3 and verse 4, after they starting in verse 2, right? Or actually starting in verse 3, he remained with her hid in the house of Yahuwah for 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and took the captains. So this is taking place 7 years after. So it would have to depend on how old he was when
Mm-hmm.
they stole him away.
Yeah,
It does say hid him and his nurse in the bed. It doesn't really say how old he was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Although for him to hide her, or for her to be able to hide him while all the other ones are being slain, he would have to be very small.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
I could see possibly like 1 or 2 years old already, and he could still be hidden.
That would
Um,
still be really young though, for even if he was like
yeah,
9 reigning.
yeah,
So perhaps when it says he began to reign, maybe
yeah,
kind of like with people over him, people being the ones that are
yeah,
actually dictating, but he holds the seat until he becomes
yeah,
of age.
Where did it
yeah.
further on that the priest who was with him for many years, I think this is the one that as long as the priest was with him, he was doing really righteously.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Let's see here. There's a reference to Second Chronicles here from the ESV. Second Chronicles 24:1. Let me see here. Maybe it might give something there. Second Chronicles.
Also, to your point, when you go to verse 18, it says the priest appointed overseers. Oh no, that's over the house of Yahweh. Never mind.
Yeah. Never mind. This second, hold on. Let me see here what the Second
Yeah,
Chronicles.
chapter 12 explains everything that the priest that would be staying with him.
Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign. He reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was also Ziba of Beersheba.
And he did what was right in the
I
eye.
just want to see if the Septuagint also has it as 7. Kind of curious if that word is supposed to be 7.
I just remember him from
Okay.
reading that it was it was really too bad because he was doing so well, but it was with the priest that was, I think, Jehoiada or something.
Yeah.
The priest that was with him, it was like 40 years or something. It was really a long time. But then after the priest was gone, he had
See, this is another
trouble.
weird. I really think there was a corruption in this text with how old he was,
Mhm.
because it's saying in the same chapter in Second Chronicles that he's already taken himself wives. Unless that happens much years later, I mean, no king I know at 7 years old is taking wives. To me, there's something up here. Either the number got changed over time, or something's going on there, because it's saying he did all that was right in the sight of Yahuwah the days of Jehoiada the priest, and Jehoiada took for him 2 wives and begat sons and daughters. So is that saying
Huh.
Jehoiada took wives for the king?
Maybe because he was too young to have wives.
The only way that would make sense is if the priest is the one that is taking wives. That's the only way that makes sense. But if it's saying that the Jehoiada chose wives for the king, that's still, you have an issue of him being too young to be fathering children. That I don't know. There's something up there. I remember looking into this one time years
Well,
ago.
it's not saying that Joash is taking wives. It's saying Jehoiada is taking wives.
Okay.
Jehoiada took to himself 2 wives.
Oh, okay. Okay. The King James just has it worded very weird,
Mhm.
because it says he took wives for him, not for himself, but for him.
Mm.
2 wives. So the English there would elude that, because it doesn't say himself. Like, I could see how someone would think that it's saying that he took wives for the king. So himself makes it a little bit more clear, but the King James kind of makes it a little bit generalized.
Gotta love King Jimmy.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what really confuses it there. So okay, so 7 years old.
I can hear the people watching. They're saying, "Don't touch our infallible King James."
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a post the other day. I want to see how many people hate on it. I made a post because I got tired of people trying to say that it's perfect and all that. I get so tired of that. I get so tired of that when they're even if you are a King James onlyist, you have to admit there's certain errors in speech,
Mhm.
language, not using the right words. I mean, Pesach for Easter. There's even with just the English translation of it, there's errors. There's so. But anyways, so what really cracks me up is when they say, "Oh, well, it's the real infallible word, so you don't need to worry about the original Greek." I'm like, "What?" So so you're trusting a translation over the original source. That's a little crazy. And I've actually hear people preach that. Like I've seen it on Instagram, I've seen it on YouTube, like these shorts, these reels of these quote unquote pastors that will say, "Oh, it's infallible, so you don't need to worry about what it was translated from. You don't need to worry about the original Greek." So you basically have blind faith in a translation. You're idolizing a translation, essentially. So that's, I don't know, that's crazy. But anyway, I think that is the end of today's study. I think we pretty much touched on everything. Gathalia, obviously, we mentioned before. There's multiple Gathalias or Athalia. I think we established last time, right? This is not the same Athalia that I was thinking of.
Looking at this, I might have been wrong on that, just because I thought we had already passed this chapter of Athalia trying to kill all the, and so I was basing it being a different Athalia based off of who she was the mother of, and the fact that I thought all the children except for this child were already slain. So it could be the same one, it could be a different one, but the reason that I gave for it being different is that it doesn't hold weight. Because I thought I could have sworn, not sworn, but I was almost certain that we had already passed this chapter.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Maybe we just read it so many times that it's just like right there on the. Don't know.
It could be. But the next chapter really explains what we were talking about. That with him and with the priest and everything like that. I was going to mention to Doug, as far as the age goes, there was another king very close to the same age. He was like 8 years old.
Yeah, I think it's Asa or Asha.
Yeah, I know one of them. I remember was very very close in age to this one. So I think it could have happened.
Yeah, possibly.
So.
All right, so I think we'll end that for today. As I always say to our viewers and listeners out there, you have any concerns, questions, anyone that's looking for fellowship, please feel free to reach out. Um, um, and see you guys next time, all of our brothers and sisters out there. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great rest of your Shabbat and Yahuwah and Yahusha out there.